Hey friends, welcome back to yoga. So glad to have you here. We are going to slow things down a little bit today. And after we do a little warm up, we're just going to hold in some deeper stretches. The reason for that being, we often, when we exercise and move around, it's so great for our body, but it really just gets into the muscles and the joints. So when we pause and slow things down a little bit, and hold a little bit longer than we might want to in these deeper stretches, it takes it past the muscle into the connective tissue. We have almost like a giant web throughout our body of this connective tissue, of this fascia, that gets really stiff and tight when we don't work through it. And it's not always comfortable to move through it, because that's where we hold a lot of our experiences, and a lot of our stress kind of gets stuck in that connective tissue. And so that's what I'm here for, to kind of help you breathe through it and hopefully just loosen things up a little bit. So that's the plan for today. If you have at home like a blanket or a block or a pillow, super helpful in any yoga practice, but especially when we're going to be holding a little bit longer today. It helps to kind of have some support, things to rest on. So if you don't have those, that's totally fine too, but just a little added bonus if you've got them laying around. So let's go ahead and begin. First, we will find our focus, find our breath. So feel free to make yourself comfortable. Just find a seat. I'm going to be on my knees today just because that's what feels better, but you can be on a chair or on the ground. But either way, let's start by just taking a few circles with those shoulders. So just drawing those shoulders forward and up, and then slowly bringing them back and down, just beginning to find some movement through the upper torso. And try reversing direction. Maybe try bringing them back and up, and then forward and down. See how that feels. And then maybe just one more circle, opposite direction, down and back, just allowing those shoulders to rest down the back here. Slightly starting to engage through that core as we lift tall through the crown of the head. And feel free to close those eyes, or as always, if you'd rather keep them open, just finding a gentle downward gaze. Let's take a moment to notice how we're breathing. Maybe you start to notice or feel what your hands might be touching, whether it's your legs or the ground or the chair. See if you can feel that connection. Maybe bring an awareness to those fingertips. Imagining just a subtle energy around each one of those fingertips. Maybe start to feel that energy go into the fingers, into the palm, the wrists. And then as we come back to that breath, let's make it a little bit more intentional. So on that next breath in, or whenever you feel ready, see if we can just relax through the belly, through the core. Oftentimes we're holding it tight without even thinking about it. So it takes a little bit of focus to be able to let it relax. But as you do so, it creates a little more space for that air to flow in and to expand, for that diaphragm to open. So just try a couple of breaths like that, just focusing on the breaths in. And just trying to let that stomach release and relax a little bit. Just allowing for some space for that diaphragm to move in and out. And then maybe for the next few breaths, shifting that focus to your breath out, to your exhales. Now, kind of the opposite of letting the belly relax. As we breathe out, we're going to try to engage the belly. And picture that diaphragm coming back up to where it meets the bottom of those ribs. And really try to engage, help press that air out of the belly, out of the lungs. And then let's just try 3 breaths with both of those connected. So on the inhale, trying to soften and relax, imagining that diaphragm opening, coming down. And then as you breathe out, contracting through the belly, picturing that diaphragm coming back up, helping press the air out of the body. 2 more breaths there. Inhaling as the belly relaxes. And exhaling as it contracts. And maybe 1 more breath like that. All right, so then go ahead and come back to that natural breath. And on our next breath in, let's reach those arms all the way up towards the ceiling, bringing the hands together at the top and exhaling them down to our heart. Let's keep those hands together as we inhale and reach them back up. And then on the exhale, they'll come all the way out and down. Let's go ahead and bring those hands forward out in front of us, making your way onto your hands and knees. Maybe make a few circles with those feet, with those ankles. Bringing some movement into the lower body there. And then with those hands on the ground, we want to try to bring those elbows directly under those shoulders and those knees right above those, or right below those hips. So feel free to adjust to find that space. And then we're just going to find tiny little circles through the upper body. So we're just circling around through the wrists and through the hips. Just small little movement as you shift that weight from one hand into the other or one leg into the other, just slowly circling around. Maybe try going the other direction a few times with those circles. Maybe make those circles a little bit bigger if you want to take that stretch a little more into those wrists. And then we'll slowly come back to center. Let's find our neutral spine, beginning to engage through that core. Once again, just try to draw that belly button up, away from the floor, a little closer to the spine. And then let's find some cat and cows. So options, you can do this on the hands and knees, where you inhale and lift the tailbone and lifting the crown of the head. And then exhaling as you round through the spine, drawing the belly in, the chin towards the chest. And just slowly go forward and back. Or if it's more comfortable for you, you can come onto the knees and do those cat and cows here. You can inhale, lifting the heart up, the shoulders drop back. And then exhaling as you round the shoulders forward, chin to chest, hips draw in. So either way, just finding where you feel more comfortable there. And just finding some movement through the spine, through those hips, through the shoulders. And just listening to the body today, how it feels, where it wants to move. If you'd rather move side to side or circle those hips. Just going where the body wants to go. We'll take about 4 breaths here. You can pause anywhere along the way. You can continue to move. It's your choice. And then maybe that next breath in, as you come back to that neutral spine, just try to readjust. The shoulders are drawing back, the core is engaged. And let's inhale, reaching the crown of the head forward. And then on the breath out, we're going to bring that right hip a little closer to the right shoulder. So we're just turning that gaze back by the feet or towards the feet. And then we'll inhale back through center. And exhaling, let's bring that left shoulder closer to the left hip. And inhaling back to center. Just 2 times each side. Try to keep those hips right above those knees. So we're just finding a little side bend, opening through one side of the torso as we engage the other side. And just evening out those sides. And as you come back to center, go ahead and exhale, reaching those hips all the way back towards the heels. Let's extend those arms forward as far as we can. And then as we inhale, we're going to come forward and up like you're coming into kneeling plank, and then we're just going to lower those hips down towards the ground as we ground down into those hands and lift tall through the crown of the head. Reaching the belly, the chest forward, maybe try to draw those shoulders back. And then next breath out, engaging through that core as you reach the hips back. Extended child's. 2 times here as you inhale forward Exhale, dropping the hips down towards the floor, and inhale, lifting the crown of the head. Exhaling, engaging, reaching those hips back. Just one more time, getting the body ready to pause and hold. And last time, making your way back into that child's pose. The space in between your knees is completely up to you if you want them close together or far apart. But maybe those big toes come together, palms can stay on the floor. Excuse me. And maybe find some movement side to side through those hips. Now as we bring those hips back to center, bringing awareness back to those palms, back to those fingertips once again. And then we're going to walk both hands over towards the right side. So this is the first place that we're going to pause and hold. So our hands are reaching over to the right, gently leaning those hips over to the left, and maybe that left hand comes on top of the right hand. Now your head here, you can rest it on your arms, or if you have a block, you can bring the block underneath that forehead. We're just going to pause for a few breaths here. Now, oftentimes when we pause, our mind starts to wander, right? That's what it does best. So when you notice that happening, you can either try to refocus on the breath, or maybe you focus on those fingertips once again. The ground beneath those fingertips, maybe that subtle energy around each one of those fingertips. And as we breathe, as we pause, you might start to feel those shoulders relax down towards the ground a little bit more. Maybe you feel an area in the body that doesn't feel so great and you need to adjust a little bit. Feel free to do that. Just listening to the body. We're just going to take 3 more breaths on this side. And then when you feel ready, we'll slowly walk these hands back to center, and then we're going to walk those hands all the way up so we come up onto those knees. Just give yourself a moment here with that head lifted, those shoulders above those hips. Just kind of check in with the body, how it feels, what you feel. And then when you're ready, we'll extend those arms forward once again. But this time we'll walk those hands over to the left side. Gently leaning those hips over to the right. Maybe that right hand comes on top of the left hand. Finding a spot for that head to rest, whether it's on your arms or maybe a block or a pillow underneath that forehead. Another option here too, if this isn't comfortable on the knees or the hips, you can place a pillow or a blanket underneath the knees here, or in between the legs, the back of the thighs and the calves. So finding your space, adjusting however or whenever you need to, and then trying to pause. And maybe as we move into a stretch, you just bring awareness to where you feel a stretch. This one is great for opening the side body, for starting to open and release through those intercostal muscles, that area in between those ribs, which helps not only in our range of motion, but just helps our breath be able to flow a little better, a little bit deeper. So about 3 more breaths on this side. And then as you feel ready, we'll slowly walk those hands back to center, maybe all the way up. Let's even walk those hands behind the feet, behind the legs. Let's try pointing those knees forward. And then on our next breath in, we're just gonna lift that heart up towards the ceiling. And on the breath out, try to drop those shoulders down away from those ears. Just reversing that fold. You can even lift the hips away from those heels if you'd like. And then go ahead and slowly lower back down. So let's walk those hands forward once again, but this time we're gonna tuck those toes, reaching those hips back, and then all the way up, let's find a downward dog. Feel free to pause here for a moment and walk out those heels. Bending one knee towards the mat as we lift through those hips and reach the opposite heel down. Okay, so we're gonna bend our right knee and slowly we're gonna draw this right knee forward towards the hands. And then let's step that foot over to the left side of the mat, lowering down to the right knee and then the left knee, untucking those left toes and just walking that left leg back until we can sit up nice and tall here. We're coming into pigeon. So variations, options for this would be you can do the seated with your ankle crossed above the knee or even laying on your back with your ankle crossed over your knee. So just paying attention to how this feels on that right knee. Feel free to adjust, maybe try shifting that weight a little bit forward and back or side to side, but just try to square those hips, keeping them even with one another. So we're not sitting onto that right hip or the left, we're trying to keep them in line. Now you're always welcome to stay lifted on those hands, or you can lower down. Again, maybe you find a block or a pillow. You can rest your chest or your forehead on the block. If you're using a blanket or a pillow or a block even, you can even bring it underneath that right hip. Again, just for something to rest on. So lots of options to make this more doable, more comfortable for you. As you find your space, finding that pause. I know this is a nice deep hip opener, so it's not always comfortable. It might bring up random emotions or things like that, and that's totally normal and okay. So just give yourself permission to adjust, to come out of it, or just try to refocus, whether it's on the breath, making that breath more intentional like we began practice with, or maybe that focus is on those fingertips. Or maybe you breathe and focus on where you might feel a little stretch or sensation in the body. Again, it's totally normal for that mind to wander, for ourselves to get distracted. So just whenever you notice that happening, finding that focus. And just know it's a practice. It's a little bit different each time. Just about 3 more breaths on this side. Then as you feel ready, using those hands, grounding down into the mat to slowly walk those hands up. Now we're going to roll onto the right hip and swing that left leg around to the front. So as it comes out to the front or the side, let's bring it out to the diagonal, and this right foot is going to just be along the inside of the leg. Now let's turn our torso so we're facing our left leg, our left foot. Hands can be on either side of the leg here. You can always lift those hips and sit on your block or your blanket. But as we breathe in, let's lift nice and tall, sitting up tall and proud. And on the breath out, we're just slowly going to walk those hands forward as we lead with the heart. Try to reach the heart towards the foot until your body naturally pauses for you. And when you find that spot, maybe we soften through the tops of the shoulders. Maybe we lower that chin a little closer to the chest. And we just observe. Observe sensation in the body. Making little adjustments if needed. If you've got a block, you can always bring it underneath that forehead here. Find a spot for that forehead to rest. You can also reach for that foot, reach for a block beyond the foot if you need something further. And just pause. Breathing into the back of that leg. Or maybe you feel this more in the lower back. It's going to be a little different for each one of us. Just using that breath to soften and let go. Three more breaths here. Refocusing on whatever it is you're choosing to focus on. It might be different with each stretch, the thing you choose to focus on. And then maybe that next breath in, we slowly ground down into those hands as we walk them all the way up. This right hand, we're going to lift it all the way up towards the ceiling until it comes back behind us to the ground. And the left hand we're going to lift as we ground down into the left heel and the right knee. And just slowly lift those hips. Kind of reverse that forward fold as we lift everything up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, you can lower the hips down. Left hand's going to come to the right knee. Grounding down into that left heel, we're going to inhale and lift nice and tall just through the torso, and then exhale, finding a gentle twist. As we look over that back shoulder, dropping those shoulders down away from those ears. As we lift tall through the crown of the head. Then maybe next breath in, slowly unwinding. As you come back to center, we're going to bend this left leg. Go ahead and roll back onto those hands and those knees, and we'll lift those hips and come back to our downward dog. Feel free to walk out those heels a few times. Let's inhale forward to a plank, and then exhale, just lower those hips, lower those knees as we lift the chest. Reaching that heart forward, getting a nice stretch through the front of the body. And then on that breath out, we engage through that core, tuck those toes, lifting those hips back and up, downward dog. Let's try everything on the other side, and then we'll send you on your way. So go ahead and bend through that left knee, drawing it forward, bringing that foot over to the right side of the mat. Lowering down to the left knee, then the right knee. And then again, just adjusting with that back leg. So walking it back to take it deeper, walking it forward for less intensity, and just paying close attention to that left knee, as I know it's a lot of twisting on it. So if you're healing your knee from an injury, maybe try the seated or on your back, just with your ankle crossed over the other knee. Otherwise, if you're here in pigeon, feel free to stay here lifted on those hands if that feels best. Just settling down into those hips. Try to keep them in line with one another, and then you can lower down to your forearms or maybe even your forehead. You can extend those arms forward. Maybe you rest your head on a block or a pillow, or maybe you bring that pillow or blanket underneath that left hip. So finding what works for you. This might be a little different than the other side. Oftentimes, we hold a little more tightness in one side versus the other. But just knowing wherever you're at is just right. Finding that breath, noticing how you might be breathing, choosing if you would like to make it a little more intentional or not. Or maybe you shift that focus to sensation you might feel through the hips or the lower back. Maybe about 3 more breaths here. Coming back to your focus. And then as you feel ready, grounding down into those hands, slowly walking those hands back up. And then we're going to roll onto that left hip, the left side, and swing that right leg around. So that right leg comes out to the diagonal, left foot is in. And then let's bring those hands to the floor on either side of that leg, flexing through that right foot as we turn and face that foot as well. Nice deep breath in as we ground down into the hips, but we lift tall through the torso. And then on the breath out, we're just going to hinge at the hips. Try to stay nice and long through the spine, reaching the heart towards the foot till you find that natural pause. And then when you find that space, softening through the gaze, releasing that chin down towards the chest, relaxing through those arms, the elbows, relaxing down towards the floor. Feel free to close those eyes and just breathe. Breathing into the back of the leg or maybe the lower back. Taking these stretches a little deeper past those muscles into that connective tissue. It's hard to be still, I know, in our busy lives, but it's so good not only for the body, for that tissue, but also just for the mind. Getting that practice on refocusing, on slowing down, on becoming comfortable with the discomfort. Let's try 3 more breaths here, but always giving yourself the choice to come out of it at any point. And when you feel ready, using those hands to help you lift back up. And then this left hand, we're going to reach it all the way up and back behind us to the floor. Right hand's going to lift up to the sky as we ground down into the right heel and lift those hips all the way up. Lifting up through the hips, through the chest. And then as you exhale, go ahead and lower the hips down. We'll bring right hand to left knee. Just readjust as we inhale and sit up tall, and then exhaling as we twist, looking over that back shoulder, allowing the pelvis, the hips to twist with you. So we want to ground down through the right heel, but allowing the entire pelvis to twist with the spine. So we're not pinching or twisting through the SI joint or through those major nerves that run through the pelvis. And then maybe that next breath in, we slowly untwist as we come back to center. And go ahead and extend both legs out in front. Maybe shake them out a little bit. And then feel free to bring hands behind the body and just inhale and lift through the heart. Shoulders roll back and down. And then exhale as we come back to center. Finding a comfortable seat. If you've got some extra time, always please feel free to lay down on your back. Give yourself a little shavasana. Maybe set a timer on your phone. 4 to 5 minutes is awesome. 4 to 5. 45 would be awesome too. But again, just allowing your body to just rest and absorb everything that you've just done. But otherwise, I will leave you here. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and feel a little more open and relaxed. So thank you. Namaste.